Hello, folks, and welcome to Club Passim tonight. Tonight, Club Passim is being hosted in Allston, Massachusetts, but it is coming out to wherever you are. Since we had to shut down our in-person activities and move everything online, we have been bringing you shows nearly 7 nights a week. We've moved all of our classes at our School of Music online as well. We have started a new grant part of Passim to help artists with their living expenses during these difficult times. We've continued our Iguana Music Fund grant, which helps artists with new projects, kind of new artistic directions in their career. And we've also started a new virtual open mic that is held on every Tuesday. Every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. You can come back here. It's mostly music, but we also welcome comedy. We've been having some stand-up folks lately, and storytelling, poetry, whatever you like to share with folks. Come on down, sign up for the open mic. For those of you who aren't familiar with Passim, we are a nonprofit organization. We've been running as a live music venue in Harvard Square for over 60 years, but we've been a nonprofit for the last 26 of those. And as part of our work in the room, we were lucky to be able to partner with another nonprofit, MassMouth, for several years in the club. MassMouth shut down last year, but thankfully some of the organizers from MassMouth got together and started their own storytelling, coaching, and producing program called Tell&Act. And for the last few months, we have been partnering with Tell&Act. On the third Monday of every month, we've been bringing them back here onto the Passim stage, for what the stage is right now. We're so thrilled to be able to work with them, and they've been bringing us stories from other producers of storytelling shows for the last few months. But tonight we're kind of shifting gears, and they're going to showcase some of the talent that they have been helping to coach and have students that have been working through their online workshop programs. So we have tons of first time and a second time teller for you tonight. I really hope you're going to enjoy what you see. If you enjoy the show tonight and you would like to help support both Passim and Tell&Act, you can go to passim.org/stream. We recommend a $12 donation for the show tonight. If you can give more, that's awesome. If you can't give $12, that is fine. We want you to be here. We want you to be enjoying this art and maybe being inspired to tell your own story through hearing folks tell their stories. But if you can give, do keep in mind, this is the way that artists and venues are making a living right now. This is the way that we're keeping doors open, how we are able to continue to bring you live events most nights of the week, and how we're going to be able to reopen the club once it is safe to do so in person. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your Monday night with us. And now I'm going to turn things over to the co-founder of Tell&Act, Anna Willis Collier.
Good evening, everybody, and good evening, Abby, and thank you so much for hosting this show on Passim Streams tonight. We're really excited. It's lots of fun, and just with regards to what you were saying, you know, Club Passim does so much good work, and Tell&Act particularly really value the work that you're doing in the community and the grant process program that you're now running to help struggling artists, because we all know that right now with the pandemic there's a lot of struggling artists out there, so thank you, we appreciate that. Yes, my name is Anna Willis Collier, formerly of MassMouth, but now with Tell&Act. I founded and co-run Tell&Act with my wonderful partner, Cheryl Hamilton, which I know that some of you already know. We Tell&Act basically is a company. We provide the service to our clients to help them try and identify ways that they can use the transformative art of storytelling to drive change, to persuade, to sell more products, to drive cultural change, and to move people into action. We particularly love that it brings people together, community together, friends, and of course it's a wonderful source of entertainment, which we I hope that we will be sharing with you this evening. So this evening's show basically will be showcasing some of the graduates from our Storytelling for Beginners class, and one such graduate. He's a graduate from a couple of years ago. So I'll be introducing him first up. I'm excited to be introducing him to the show. I should say, if you'd like to know any more about Tell&Act, Abby, would you please put that lovely in the comments? Thank you very much. But I'm really excited to get started. Our first storyteller, Simon. Like I said, he is a previous graduate from a couple of years ago of one of the classes that I taught, and he has an amazing stage presence. He has a really cool story, and this particular story that he developed in the class, he went on to tell on the TV show, the national TV show Stories from the Stage. That show, for those of you who might not know about it, it's produced by the World Channel in collaboration with WGBH Events and Tell&Act. Tell&Act plays the role of, we're kind of like casting directors. We curate the show, we find the tellers, and we coach the tellers for that show. So also, if you want any more information on that, you can go to tellandact.com. And if you have stories that you'd like to pitch, you can pitch them straight on our website. And also classes that you'd like to explore, you can pitch them there. But Simon joins us this evening. He was born in a rural village in central Kenya. He graduated from Harvard School of Public Health and today serves as a director of the Biological Safety Program with the Boston Public Health Commission. Simon, sorry, I'm just about to repeat myself, but Simon joins us tonight to kindly warm the stage for our new graduates. So I'd like to welcome to the stage our friend, Simon Muchohi. Thank you.
I'm sitting at Harvard Yard in Cambridge. It is warm and sunny in spring. I'm feeling very excited and I'm very happy because I'm at my graduation ceremony from Harvard University. I was born in Kenya. My parents were peasant farmers and we were very poor. I was the first person from the entire village to attend Harvard University. At Harvard, I gained some confidence. I think I became overconfident. After graduation, I was so confident that I could get a job. I never even bothered to get started looking for one for 4 weeks. Later, I applied for 3 jobs at Harvard. I was rejected not once, not twice, but 3 times. I was devastated, but the experience harbored me. 4 months later, I still didn't have a job, and I was running out of money. I was becoming very desperate. I went to see my friend David, and I told him my major problem. David was very sympathetic. He said, "Simon, in Kenya, you can borrow money from your friends. In the US, you swipe, use your credit card." I had no money. I had no credit. Forget about the credit card. David gave me $20 and I ran across the street to the nearest grocery store. I went and picked 2 loaves of yesterday's bread and then a packet of drumsticks. As I was rushing out to check out, I passed by the customer care service desk. I saw a big sign that said, "We are hiring." I went to the lady who was at the counter and said, "Please hire me." Without even looking at me, she said, "Go online." I could hardly wait to check out of the store before I started eating my yesterday's bread. It tasted so sweet. That evening, I prepared a delicious meal of drumsticks. It was the best meal that I had eaten for several months. I was very happy, but I was also ashamed. I had more degrees than a thermometer, and here I was, borrowing money from my friend just to feed myself. I decided to count the money that I had in my pocket so that I could be able to strategize how to survive. I was so sure that I had less than $20 in my pocket. When I counted the money, I was surprised. I found I had $89.50. This was like a miracle. I had enough money to last me for a month. I was so excited I could hardly fall asleep. I woke up in the middle of the night. Some demons were tormenting me. I thought I saw my mom standing by my bedside. She was looking at me with large, ugly eyes. She pointed at me and said, "Simon, do you want to steal that money?" My mother often told us, "We are poor, but we are honest." The next day, I went back to the store to return the excess change. I found the supervisor, but I could not see the cashier who had given me the money. The supervisor would not listen to me. I left the store. I was very disappointed. I left with my money. The next day, I went back. I talked to the customer service manager. She looked at a sheet of paper and asked me, "How much money do you have?" I told her I had $80 in excess change. She said, "Yes, that's the money we've been looking for." She called the store manager to come. The store manager ran from upstairs, and when he came, the customer service manager said, "This gentleman has returned the money we've been looking for." The store manager gave me a store card, gift card worth $50, and then said, "Do you want a job?" Of course, I want. There are 3 jobs. I didn't want anything to do with excess change. I decided to take the job for stacking popcorn on the shelves. I decided to do the right thing because my mother told me to do so. And at that moment, it made a difference in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. I love that story. It's just such a lovely, cool story. And yeah, we need lots of lovely stories right now, don't we? You know, with good.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
What I just wanted, before we move on, I just wanted to ask you, so I haven't been able to see you. I haven't seen you at all since you featured on Stories from the Stage. So yes. I just wanted to know, what was that experience like for you, and has storytelling played a part in your life since? Because that must have been maybe a year ago. No, over a year ago.
Oh yeah, it's over a year ago. Yeah. I think that experience was very good because first of all, I sent it to my friends and they were so excited. They could not imagine that I was on big stage and not becoming famous. Then they said, okay, you are very courageous because having come from Kenya and now they can see me on YouTube. I think that was very exciting. And then after that, I think there was a time I wanted to come for another course, but then that's when the COVID came, and then I think I couldn't be able to do it. And I've been wondering where is Anna and Cherry. So that's what I've been thinking about.
Okay. There'll be lots more courses and lots more opportunities. So yeah, I hope to see you again soon. That would be really nice. Thank you, Simon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so I'm going to move on now to the next teller. Next up, we have Alicia Herman. Her background is in visual arts, and when she was younger, she used to perform modern dance. And she said that she was very comfortable on the stage as long as she didn't have to speak. So by Alicia joining us tonight and sharing her story, she has had to summon great courage, and we're really, really proud of her. So I would like to introduce to the stage Alicia Herman. Take it away. Thank you.
Okay. The theme that I had for my story as a prompt was missed connections. Growing up in New York City, when I had a romance and then a breakup, often that was it. I would never see that person again for a really long time, or maybe never. On a random occasion, we might run into each other on the street. We might even flirt or say hi, and then goodbye again forever. With more intense relationships, it was harder. After years of running around and sharing the city together, certain places where we went dancing, hung out, the late night Greek diner, they became places of memories. I might feel a little sad flutter when I would pass the subway stop where I would get off so we could visit each other. Once, while I was in a Kinko's printing a grad paper, an ex-boyfriend suddenly popped up behind me, and it was such a jolt. It's so hard when these things happen in New York. I would have to find a way to reset equilibrium while in the public space of this massive city. But this was normal, and that was fine. And then, around 2008, I was a wife and a mother to twin babies, and I was up late at night, and I found Facebook, and everything changed. In a matter of weeks, everybody and anybody resurfaced. Friends from high school, friends from college, friends from 5th grade, friends from 2nd grade, friends from dance, friends from camp, teachers, babysitters, anybody I ever knew. Memories came flooding in. I had dreams with emotions from childhood I hadn't remembered for years. And of course, the ex-boyfriends resurfaced too. One night, I got a friend request from a boy I had a crush on at age 14. He Facebook friended me because he was promoting his own online video about being the last Jewish waiter at Katz's Deli. He still had that self-deprecating humor, and it was really funny. And I couldn't help thinking, oh, the one that got away. I could have been Mrs. Last Jewish Waiter. That guy from Kinko's, he popped up too with a Facebook message, and it also threw me for an emotional loop. We followed up with a phone call. We laughed. He shared that he was feeling lost. He broke up with a new love out of fear his career wasn't strong enough, and a recession layoff made him feel insecure. I gave him encouragement and life advice, and then off he went back to the silent Facebook abyss. I see his pictures, maybe he sees mine, but we never spoke again. I saw he got back with this woman, got married, and started a family. I couldn't help wonder if my phone call had helped. Regardless, seeing all these people from my past, all these emotions, it was amazing. And all in the safety of late night at home with the glow of the laptop. And now here I am in my 40s, a new chapter. I had experienced a 20-year relationship and 10 years marriage, and this relationship has ended. I now have an ex-husband. There was no cheating, no betrayal, just the loss of romantic connection and need to go separate ways and live in separate homes. It was raw, but I adjusted in time. We still see each other because we are still mom and dad. And we are both deeply committed to caring for our daughters. And we are even friends, real friends, not just Facebook friends. 2 months ago, my ex-husband got a 7-week-old puppy, and it was a dream come true for my daughters. This tiny 9-pound mixed golden retriever, and she was so unbelievably cute. And apparently, I inherited another little creature to jointly care for. It turned out to be harder than he thought. He reached out for help. He was sleep deprived and said he thought we were going to do this together. I help out as best I can. Most days I take the dog for a few hours. I have allergies, but I love the dog, so it's worth it. She makes my daughter so deeply happy, and she makes me happy too. In time, maybe when the kids and the dog are grown, maybe my ex and I will go our Facebook separate ways. But at least for this breakup, getting over it has been in person. The feelings have been dealt with in person. And we have arguments in person. And we are moving forward and healing and caring and being human in person. We don't run into each other by accident. Kinko's is no longer in business, and maybe someday Facebook will go under. But for now, I am dealing with life in person, and sometimes with a little dog by my side, and I am grateful.
In person. Doesn't that just sound amazing right now? In person. We are sat on a screen.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I dream of those days. We will be in person again. Yeah. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. That just brings up so many thoughts and feelings. I think if everybody was honest, I wonder, well, if everybody was honest, whether they'd admit to looking up their exes and seeing,
Oh, absolutely.
Of course. I mean, why would you not? I'll be honest. There you go. But thank you for sharing that. And particularly, like I said, you wrote in your bio that you were fine with being on the stage, but you would, as long as you didn't have to speak. So how was that? Can I ask you, how did that
was fine. Yeah. Well, and as I said, it was a little bit of an accident that I found myself on this. I kind of clicked a few things and somehow decided to go for it and signed up for a class and didn't know that the grand finale would be online and in public. But I'm glad for the accident. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So
I think it's really funny that your story about the kind of accident, and here you are.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that you had that accident and you're here and that you shared your story. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna move on to our next teller now and keep moving us. Our next teller is Candace Nelson. Candace is a retired development worker who worked in Africa, mostly Africa, for 35 years and supported mostly financial services tailored to the poor. She wanted, in her own words, she said that she knows that she's a senior citizen because she had to downsize and get hearing aids, but she quite often forgets that. And I think that's down to her young mind and her joie de vivre. I'm adding that bit because that's what I think. Anyway, I'd like to welcome to the stage Candace Nelson. Take it away.
So, my husband, Peter, is like the cat with 9 lives. He has survived lung cancer, kidney failure, heart disease, and diabetes. The kidney thing forced him to go on dialysis for a few years while he was waiting to get a new kidney, and that really was all-consuming. We had 2 sons in middle school then, and he just didn't have time to be their father. And even though I knew there was nothing we could really do about that. I kept trying to find ways for him to engage with his kids. And that's when I came up with my great idea. My husband and his family are all avid sailors, and my older son had already drunk that Kool-Aid, so I thought, wouldn't it be great for father and son to build a boat together on the weekends? Peter's brother told me exactly what to do. He said, go online to the wooden boat store, order their kit for a sailing rowboat, and there it was. I had a great idea and a way to implement it. I laid it all out for Peter, and he said no, just like that. 6 months later, 2 large packages arrived at our house. Didn't I tell you, Peter said? I ordered that wooden boat kit. Oh, but winter's almost here. When are you going to build it? Sure enough, by December, the skeleton of a wooden boat stretched across 2 sawhorses in our garage. It did get too cold that he had to stop working on it. But when it got warm again, our family did what it had always done. We went off sailing, hiking, biking, camping, and therein lay the pattern of boat building. Winters were too cold and summers were too busy. My sons moved on to high school. They graduated from high school. Hell, they graduated from college, and that boat still lay on its sawhorses. Peter got a kidney in those years, and that was fabulous for us, but it really didn't help the boat building. So my great idea turned into a giant thorn in my side. 12 years is a long time to watch a project fill your garage and go nowhere. That's 12 winters of scraping ice off the windshield of a car that could be in the garage. I set deadlines. I made threats. I fantasized about taking an axe to that thing and chopping it up for kindling. Peter was unfazed. He said if he ever finished it, he would name it Grounds for Divorce. Then in 2013, we bought a cabin on a lake in Maine for our retirement. And damned if Peter didn't just kick into boat building gear. Now, mind you, it still took him 2 years to finish it, but eventually we put that little rowboat on a trailer and we drove it to the lake. Now, wooden boats are a thing. People notice them. Peter had painted his a really beautiful royal blue on the outside and a luminous sky blue on the inside. And the sail, it's red. People love to take pictures of that boat. My boys love to row it. Peter loved to sail it. Even I fell in love with it. And I forgave Peter. And he named it Blue Loon. All was well. Until 2 years ago, when Peter was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Chemo, radiation, and the kicker, they took out his stomach. Since then, his recovery has been painfully slow. So last spring, we were really eager to get back to the lake, to warm weather and outdoor living. But it was a different summer, a weird summer. Peter is fed through a feeding tube that's surgically implanted in his gut, and it takes about 15 hours a day. And it keeps him from swimming, and that he grumbled about that all summer long. But once a week or so, he would rig that boat and he would sail away as if nothing were amiss. Oh, and as summer wound down, I started looking forward to September, actually. It is the best month at the lake. After Labor Day, everybody leaves, but it's still warm. So when my next door neighbor packs up for the season, we have about a week to 10 days of carefree, broad daylight skinny dipping. In that special period, Peter took the boat out for one last sail of the year. And as I noticed him coming back towards our dock, I got a great idea. I thought, wouldn't it be great if the guy without a stomach was met by a naked mermaid? And in I dove. Now, as sailor and swimmer were approaching each other, I noticed that Peter was yelling at me. I couldn't hear what he was saying. But then I saw the boat was swamped. He had hit a submerged rock and water was gushing up through a hole in the bottom. Everything in the boat, the oars, the seat cushions, the water bar were all floating away. We knew that we had to get that boat into shore before it sank. Peter struggled to keep sailing it, and I was pushing it from the stern. Somehow we got into shallow water where we could stand up. Then we struggled to get the water out of the boat by tipping up one end so the water could spill out the other end, one side out the other side. We kept doing that little by little. We kept getting rid of the water, still in a panic. Mind you, I'm naked. We did, however, manage to empty the water out and pull up on shore the skeletal cancer survivor and his naked wife. Blue Loon, once again, sits on its sawhorses. We're waiting to see if it has multiple lives, just like the guy who built it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Candace. That was a beautiful story. I do love that. And I've actually been lucky enough to see a picture of the blue loon, and it is just as magnificent as the picture that you create when you tell your story. But I must admit, you do make me chuckle when I hear about the naked mermaid. I love it. I would like to ask you, you've been a really wonderful member of the group, and you've, really brought yourself to the group and helped everybody with their stories, with your suggestions. But I wonder, would you say was the main lesson that you learned from this storytelling class?
Oh, that's really easy. You can't tell a story that you've written. I came to storytelling from writing. I love to write, and things happen to me because I have this sort of interesting life, as we all do, and I write things down when they happen. So I have dozens of written stories. I picked one to try to tell, and I had to unwrite it. I had to unlearn it in order to tell it, and that with your help. So that was the big lesson.
Well, thank you. You did a really good job. I know you worked really hard on it. But yes, we quite often we work with writers, amazing writers, but they, like, I think you said it really well, they quite often have to learn to unwrite. And the way that we sort of quite often say it is to get them from the page to the stage, to make it so that, because we speak very differently to the way that we often write. And we're taught to write differently to the way that we speak. So to reverse that is kind of like quite a strange experience. Isn't it? Isn't it? But thank you. You did really well. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you. I'm now going to move on to our next teller for the evening, who is the wonderful, my friend, Tina Weber. Tina is Faculty and Business Competitions Director at Tufts University, where she also teaches entrepreneurship, business planning, and creative innovation. Tina is also, I'd just like to say, I mentioned she was my friend, but Tina, when I first came here 8 years ago from Asia, Tina was one of these amazingly welcoming people who took the time to speak to me, little old new me, and to find out, she's very curious, find out about me as I was curious to find out about her, and is a wonderful friend and connector of people in the kind of loveliest way. And she's pretty damn smart too. But I would like to introduce to the stage Tina Weber. Take it away, Tina.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the kind words. It's been amazing knowing you because I love your stories, and thank you for the opportunity to tell a story and learn about how to tell a story tonight. So, my story tonight is about something new and red to wear. I was supposed to get everybody in the family something new to wear that is the color red. Now, getting whole new outfits would be expensive, so I thought I could get brand new red underwear for everyone in the family. That would be fairly inexpensive and should be easy to get, right? But the pandemic was raging. It's cold and snowy outside. Going out was risky. I didn't want to go to the mall. So I powered up my laptop and pulled up Amazon because this should be easy, right? Order some underwear. As it turns out, no, it was not easy. Everything I could find online were lazy and inappropriate, probably because Valentine's Day was coming up. Or the ones that I found were not really red. I looked everywhere. Amazon, Old Navy, Macy's online, Kohl's, Target. I even tried fancy, expensive organic underwear brands. No dice. Now, you might be wondering, why do I need to get brand new red underwear or brand new things to wear that's red for everyone in the family? And the answer to this is because Lunar New Year was coming up. So here we are shopping for red underwear on Amazon, and the clock is ticking. And finally, I found some, and so exciting. I found some perfect ones for my husband, red cotton boxer briefs for the men in the family. They were bright red, perfect. And when they came, I threw them in the wash immediately so they would be ready to wear. I felt so good and accomplished about myself. So my husband pulled them out of the dryer when they were done, and he started laughing, and he couldn't stop laughing. From his expression, I knew something was not quite right. He held them up for me to see. Those of you who didn't know, my husband's quite a bit taller and bigger than I am, so I made sure that I bought him extra large size. Well, these were definitely not extra large anymore. After washing, I'm not even sure they would fit me. So finally, when we stopped laughing, I had to go back to square one and think about getting something else. And when I told my sister-in-law what had happened, she looked at me, not laughing, and said, "Wait a minute, you're not supposed to wash the new clothes before wearing them on New Year's Day." What? I didn't know that. I didn't grow up with these traditions, so I had to learn and find all these things out by myself. So, in my research, new clothes on New Year's Day are supposed to symbolize fresh new beginnings, and red is the color of happiness and good luck. And honestly, after the year that we had last year, I was really ready to grab onto anything hopeful and happy. So at this point, we're getting closer and closer to the new year, and the new year was only a week away. Okay, forget underwear. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I racked my brain looking for something easy and something that I can get shipped fast. And finally, I had what I thought was a brilliant idea. I ordered a set of red bracelets for everybody. No washing required. And with 2 days shipping, they got here fast. Once again, I felt really good and accomplished about myself. My teenage daughter opened up her package and looked at them and put them on. And she looked at me weirdly and she said, "Mom, you know these are Jewish bracelets, right?" So it turns out I had ordered Kabbalah red string bracelets. At the end of the day, I give up. Th- This is the best I could do, and there are so many rules, and I can't really keep up. Now, you might ask, what did I learn from all these experience? Well, I can tell you that I learned not only should I have planned even earlier than I did this year, but second of all, don't buy cheap underwear through Amazon. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. And I didn't know you weren't supposed to wash your clothes for Chinese New Year, for Lunar New Year. You weren't supposed to wash your clothes first. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, apparently.
Well, I know every day is a school day. One of my favorite
Exactly.
things. Now we know. Thank you. That's really kind of funny. I love it. Thank you. What would you say was the thing that you learned, or the biggest lesson that you learned in class?
I actually really love the camaraderie and honesty that we all gave from each other. Obviously, we learned a lot from you and like how to structure the story and tell it, but also the feedback that we gave each other was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
I think doing it by myself would not have been as impactful, but getting that feedback and actually listening to how other people heard it was really, really helpful.
That's a really good point. That is something, I mean, you were all particularly, you collaborated really well. You were really supportive of each other. And I love that. That's something that my partner Sharon and I really love about storytelling, is bringing community together. And once people share their stories, they can become pretty good friends pretty quickly. But yeah, it is a collaborative process. It is also very subjective. different people will see different things, understand different things, will come up with different questions. And that's the cool thing. So you can carry on. We're all evolving. And, I continue to learn from you guys. And, that's the cool thing. We can all learn from each other in storytelling. So thank you.
Loved it.
I'm glad you did. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, sharing your story. Okay, I'm going to be bringing you on to our next storyteller now. Our next storyteller is Amy Gerbis. In her spare time, Amy enjoys days at the beach with her husband and daughters. She's an expert baker and a wine connoisseur. Maybe you can teach me something, Amy. And she also believes in lifelong learning and loves to travel. Amy also runs a small business helping students to craft college application essays and personal statements that work. Okay, I'd like to hand the stage to Amy Gerbis.
Hi, thank you very much, Anna. I appreciate being here. So my story tonight is about parenting. When you're about to become a parent for the very first time, you buy parenting books, or that's what many people do, and that's what I did. I bought What to Expect When You're Expecting, or How to Get Your Baby to Sleep Through the Night, or How to Get My Infant into the Ivy Leagues. I bought all the books and I read them. These are great books, and they offer sage advice for run-of-the-mill milestones, things like that, what to do with a fever. But they don't always offer the best advice for unexpected things that occur in life. Such as, there was this one time when my husband and I took our 6-year-old to an upscale restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia. And we had our glasses of wine, and our 6-year-old had her glasses of Shirley Temples. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited an excessively long time for our appetizers. And finally, a waitress came over to our table, and she very calmly says to us, "I'm really sorry for this, but we have to ask all of our diners to vacate as quickly as possible. There's a gas leak in the kitchen, and we're afraid of an explosion." Well, so we wasted no time. We grab our kid, we grab our belongings, my purse, our jackets, and we bolt out the door, probably faster than anyone else because we all love jogging. We ran across the street, we ran down the block, and we turned around and we saw all the fire trucks pulling up. I didn't think much about it. I'm sure I was a little scared at the time. So a few years later, probably about 4 years later, we are at our favorite lobster shack north of Boston. And my husband was parking the car, and I was inside with my then 10-year-old, and I had our 3-year-old in my arms. And we waited in line, a long line of people inching our way forward to order our lobster rolls and our fried seafood platters, the way everyone does. And as soon as I got up to the counter to place my order, sure enough, the kitchen caught on fire. And flames leapt up from the deep fryers in the back of the kitchen. I was absolutely shocked. The teenage workers who were there, they were standing around staring. There was one adult. He grabbed a fire extinguisher and started spraying. It was really crazy. So my instincts kick in, and I grab my 10-year-old by the shoulder, and I'm holding my 3-year-old tightly, and I drag my 10-year-old, and I pivot us toward the door, and I start pushing my way to that door. And let me tell you, I pushed senior citizens out of the way. I pushed everyone. I didn't care who was there. I wanted myself and my kids out safely. We ran across the street just in time to see my husband walking back from the parking space, and we met him, and he wondered why we left, and I said, "Look, smoke's coming out." And I thought, what is it about me and restaurants? So then 4 years later, again, my 10-year-old is now 14, and we're on a family trip to Israel. And it was a time during which Palestinians had kidnapped 3 teenage boys, killing them all. And in retaliation, there were some Israeli nationalists who kidnapped and tortured and burnt a Arab boy and dumped his body in a forest. And you know the saying that the air is so filled with tension that you can cut it with a knife? Well, it truly was. It was palpable the entire vacation. So one day, my family were in a taxi and we're headed to a large art museum in Tel Aviv. And suddenly, our driver swerves to the side of the road and immediately stops the car. And I also noticed all the other cars were pulled off to the sides of the road. And in his very halting English, he yells, "Get out now! Missile, missile, missile!" And once again, I grab my girls very firmly by wrists, digging in, and I drag them from the back seat of the taxi. The 7-year-old stumbled a bit, and I had to drag her up. And the taxi driver was helping me, and he pushed us toward an open doorway of an apartment building where other people were also gathered. And right as we get there, he yells, "Cover your ears!" And boom! There's a very loud sound, and the ground shakes. And because this was yet another new situation, I didn't know exactly what to do this time, but our taxi driver, after a few minutes, led us back to his taxi. And he noticed that, not being Israeli, we seemed very nervous and pale, and not from lack of sun. He offered us gum, the only thing that he knew how to offer. He said, "Here, chew, it will calm you." This was my first experience with a bombing. And as I reflect back on all these adventures, I realize that I am tough. I am a survivor. And whenever I'm in a restaurant, I always sit with my back to a wall so that I can see the entrance or the exit, so that I can find my way out as quickly as is necessary. Thank you.
Wow. That is a crazy story. You know, as I've been listening to you tell your story throughout the class, I have this almost Wonder Woman like vision, and I think you should just raise your hands now, just because we won't see your cuffs. You know, there's like cuffs.
Well, thank you. I don't know that it's quite that way, but
well, if you don't have them, you should get them.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's quite crazy.
Yeah.
I would also like to ask you the same question. What did you get from class? What do you think was your most or biggest lesson?
So I really think working with others to hear the stories and the feedback and the honest feedback of the content, what it would take to bring it to fruition for a great story to be told and not written. I think it was very helpful. This is the first time I've done this, and I have so many stories in my head, and I've tried to write them down over the years, but I think storytelling is really quite fun. And I think the feedback was so helpful.
Great. That's really good to hear. Like I said, you've been a brilliant group, and yeah, really, really good. So thank you so much for that. I'm actually going to close out the evening, and I'm going to tell a quick story, but I'll come back and I'll thank everybody and I'll close out the show, but I'll start my story now. So I've had many jobs in my life. I've been a cleaner, I've cleaned toilets, I've delivered newspapers, I've harvested potatoes. I think that was my worst job. I have managed multi-million-dollar accounts. I've lived all over the world and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in nonprofit management for an aid agency in India. Some really cool things, but I think at about 7 years ago now, I was at a particular low point in my life. My job at this time was to stand on one particular street corner. I would try and get noticed by the traffic, try and stop the traffic. And I was a school crossing guard. And when I say it was a low point in my life, I don't mean because to be a school crossing guard is a lowly point in anyone's life. It's a good, honest job. It really is. But what I mean by that is that I was suffering from mind-crushing, debilitating sort of sadness and just complete depression. I was spending a lot of my days in bed. All I wanted to do was sleep. I was exhausted. And during my waking times, I would cry quite a lot. I had a few health conditions, and there was some pretty sort of serious family stuff going on at the time. Anyway, quite often I would wear my sunglasses to my 2 shifts, my 2 1-hour shifts a day as a school crossing guard. And those glasses were to hide my leaking, teary eyes. And one morning, it's just literally the crossing guard's just around the corner from my house. And I come around the corner and there's 2 guys walking towards me, quite young guys, maybe in their 20s, maybe early 30s. And one of them is holding up his hand, like in a kind of like a high five gesture. And because I just sort of rounded the corner and I'm sort of sniffing and I go, oh, and so I put my hand up and I give him a high five. Seemed a bit weird and a bit random, but he smiled and carried on walking. And I carried on walking and got to the crossing and I thought, oh, and I felt kind of like, it was weird, like, it probably sounds silly, but like he'd somehow noticed me and maybe noticed my sadness, even behind my glasses. And he'd kind of reached into me and found my sadness and shone some sunshine on it. And it felt lovely. It felt warm and lovely. And for the rest of the day, I kept thinking about this young man and that feeling of what he'd done just by putting out his hand. And as time went on, maybe sometimes every few days, sometimes every few weeks, he would walk past, because I think that he worked further up the street, and he would walk past. Sometimes I'd be stood in the middle of the street, stopping the traffic with my stop sign in one hand and my other hand, like desperately trying to stop the traffic, try not to get run over. And he would run out into the middle of the street and give me a high five, and then he would run back and keep going. And then sometimes I would see him on the same side of the road and he would give me a high five. And then I would hear this sort of rhythmic kind of sound. And I would look behind me and he'd be skipping down the street after giving me a high five. And my kind of heart was all of a flutter, and not in a kind of amorous, flirty kind of way, because, well, I must be about twice his age, and I'm sure I wasn't probably at my most attractive because I was probably wearing 3 coats. Oh, and a fluorescent yellow coat, a big stop sign, mittens, and a big fluorescent like woolen hat. So not in the most amorous, attractive kind of way, but in the way that I felt like he'd seen me, and he was like my sunshine. And I felt that he had kind of gotten this energy from me reciprocating his high five. And then one time I was stood in the middle of the street, stop sign, and my hand stopping the rest of the traffic. And he was walking down the street with a young lady, and he stopped short of the crossing and he took off his backpack, gave this young lady this other bag he was carrying, and then he took a little run up, and then he did a cartwheel. And then he walked back, picked up his backpack, and waved and kind of went. And I was the other side of the street, and I said, "I love you, you're amazing." And he went, "Mwah, mwah." And that connection, that crazy connection of this young man and this like middle-aged crossing guard was so special. He was my sunshine, like I said. Now, I like to tell you that, that flipped a switch and then I was perfectly fine and didn't suffer from depression anymore. Well, that didn't happen. But slowly I did rise out of it. Things changed, life changed, and thankfully now I'm okay. But the memory, just talking about that lovely young man and that kind of strange connection of somehow us connecting and bringing joy in some small way to each other's lives was really special. And it brings me sort of to the current day. We're in a pandemic and we often don't get to connect with our friends even, or our family, but we don't have those small connections with complete strangers in the street. I personally miss those, but when I do get to go out and I pass people, complete strangers in the street, I try and make sure to smile. And even if it's below my mask, I try and make my eyes smile. Not sure how that comes across, but I just want everyone to think about smiling and connecting with strangers, because right now we really need it. Thank you. So that was our last story for this evening. I would love to thank all of our tellers who've worked really, really hard and done a really good job at sharing their stories with all of us. I'd like to thank Abby and Club Passim for hosting us this evening. Like I said, if you'd like to know anything more about Tell&Act, about pitching your stories for Stories from the Stage, or about our classes or our services, you can go to tellandact.com. There we go. So thank you very much. And I'd love to wish you all a wonderful evening, and do take care and go connect and smile at people, please.